Baltimore, and always time well spent, as are his curiously long blogs. Long-time SIer, long-time sports writer, now with MLB.com as the executive columnist, as well as an author of an upcoming book on Houdini, and his infamous podcasts with Ken Tremendous. We welcome the great Joe Posnanski back on. This will be a curiously short take, but we always appreciate his time. Posnanski, what do you want? Springsteen for 100 or All-Star Game for 200? What category are we going with tonight, man?
Oh, boy, that's tough. That's tough. You always want to go for the 200. I'm here in Miami already, so ready to roll.
All right, so All-Star Games, what value have they at this point? You're an old fart, get off my lawn guy like me. You remember Fosse and Pete Rose, and you remember, Atlee Hammaker and all these things that happened, and Dave Parker and all the lure. This one doesn't count anymore. I kind of got used to the Game 7 thing. I was never against the game mattering. I kind of like that part of it.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. I didn't think it added a whole lot to the game, but I didn't mind it, especially because, I always tell people, you remember what the system was before. The system before was just an odd, even year. The National League would have it one year, the American League would have it another year. I mean, that's a dumb way to do it. So I never had a problem with it. I never really thought, though, that it sort of improved the All-Star Game. I'll tell you what I think the big thing is with the All-Star Game. To me, the big issue is I don't think the National League and American League thing works anymore. I don't think that the two leagues are that different. I don't think they care that much about each other. National Leaguers used to hate American Leaguers, and it went vice versa, and it was real. That was like a real rivalry, and now, you're in the American League one year, you're in the National League the next year, you play each other, a bunch of games in interleague play. That distance is gone, and I just don't think that's the way it works. I'd like to see them kind of redo it a little bit. But in the meantime, it'll still be fun. The Derby will be fun. It's still a fun event. It just doesn't have that same meaning.
I love these 50,000 feet discussions with you about the big picture of baseball because, in blurring the lines of the American and National League, I'm sure because you're an old fart like me, you hated it 20 years ago and all the wild cards and, the fact that these teams would only get together and these players, Carlton would only pitch to Reggie Jackson in the All-Star game, And then there's the designated hitter and what would become of the redheaded stepchild that has begat billion-dollar salaries. And quite frankly, I'm an American League guy, right, Joe? I'm a Baltimore guy. I was born in '68, so the DH is all I really know, from going to Memorial Stadium as a kid. I'm a DH guy. Everybody I know who grew up in Philadelphia or grew up in St. Louis or whatever, they think the DH is heresy even 45 years later. But something would have to be done, and I honestly don't know what direction they really would go in. I don't think the Players Association would ever let them abolish the designated hitter at this point. They make too much money on it.
Yeah, the designated hitter is not going away. The people who think, that the leagues will ever be the same by the designated hitter disappearing, that's not going to happen. The only way the leagues will ever be the same is if the National League added the designated hitter. But as you say, and I, look, you and I we're the same. We both we're the same age. We grew up in American League towns, so all I've ever known is a DH. The DH for me was Frank Robinson when I was growing up in Cleveland. So I love the DH and always have. But I also understand why National League fans don't like it, and I wouldn't want to force it on them. I have no problem with the leagues being separate. I really don't. I don't have any problem with there being different rules in each league. I think it's the one thing that sort of separates the two. That doesn't bother me at all, but I don't think that that's enough to make the two leagues feel like they're real rivals. There's that rivalry thing. It used to be they played different styles. There was a different feel. There was a different vibe. National League believed they were better and just went into the All-Star game with like blood in their eyes. They were just ready to destroy people. It's gone. That part of it's gone, and it's really much more of an exhibition game. And also, look, the other thing about it is they don't play it to win anymore. I mean, that was, in those days, you were a starter, you played like 6-7 innings, and every starting pitcher went at least 3 and sometimes more. And there was a real, effort to win. I don't just mean by the players. I mean the teams played the game to win. They were managed to win. It's not true anymore. You get 1 or 2 at bats if you're a starter. You pitch 1 inning if you're the starting pitcher. 1 2/3 innings, I think, was the most anybody pitched last year. It's just not the same. It's just not the same. But it's still fun. I mean, to me, that's the thing about baseball. No matter what they do to it, look, I love this game so much. Whatever they do, it's still fun for me.
Is this like the 71 Detroit game in your mind with all these young players? Are we going to look back 30 years from now and say, my God, there were 12, 14 Hall of Famers in this game this year? Because certainly, given the years and given the age of these guys, this is as deep and as young an all-star game as I've seen.
Yeah, and you know what? That 71 All-Star game is a great one to bring up because we might just see Reggie hit the ball on the roof, right? I mean, that's the feel, right?
Hey, Aparicio was aboard. He scored the run with that home run. I know that. I've seen the video of it, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fun. I mean, I think the Derby's going to be fun. I mean, you got Judge, you got Bellinger, and you got Correa, and you got, Machado, and you got all of these young, incredible hitters. And great fielders. I mean, it's really, really a fun time for baseball. So, yeah, I think we could look back on this, especially because so many rookies are such a big part of this game. First and second year guys, and heck, the old man of the game is like Bryce Harper's, all of 24. So, I think it is a really special time in baseball as far as a lot of young talent, the future of the game is now, and I think that part is really, really fun. So I think it's going to be a fun game. It's interesting. It's going to be here in Miami. I mean, that's not a great hitter's park, so I wonder what that's going to be like. I wonder if it's going to feel a little bit dead as far as once the game begins. I'm even wondering how the Derby will be, but it'll be a blast for sure.
He is Joe Posnanski, one of our favorite guests. He is an executive columnist at MLB.com. We will get to the Springsteen portion of the segments momentarily, but between now and then, the home runs are going to be the story, right? I mean, not just the Derby and all this, but the fact that everything's either a home run or a strikeout, and now the juice ball thing's back after 20 years, right?
Yeah, everybody's talking about, the ball, and clearly there was something that must have happened, I think, in 2015, the second half of that year when everything just jumped up like crazy. But I got to say, I mean, the one thing that I think everybody looks for are, like, simple answers. I don't think this is simple. I mean, if the ball's different, if the bats are different, if the equipment's different, that would be part of it. But the players are much stronger, and I think there's a go big or go home philosophy in baseball now. You talk about the strikeouts. We're gonna break the home run record in baseball this year. I think they're gonna hit more home runs than have ever been hit in a game, but in a season rather. But they're going to break the strikeout record by more. They're going to destroy the strikeout record.
Everybody's Dave Kingman, dude. It's kind of hard to watch, right?
Well, it's. I think it's where the game went because velocity is way up. Everybody's playing incredibly, not only good defense, but defense designed especially for you, or where they're shifting, and not just shifting like I put 4 guys on the right side of the infield or whatever, shifting so there are people up the middle if that's where you like to go. There's just somebody wherever you hit the ball, and I think hitters responded going, you know what? Strikeout's no better than a double play ground ball. It's no worse. I mean, it is better. And the one place you can hit the ball with some success is over the fence. And I just think that's the philosophy that everybody's talking launch angles and putting a little uppercut in your swing. That's the hitters, I think, have made a conscious decision to start going for the long ball. And I think that's as big a part as any for why we're seeing so many.
Well, I mean, come on, Joe. I'm here in Baltimore where we've been playing beer league softball with varying degrees of success the last few years. I mean, Trumbo, Davis, down the line, Adam Jones, walk off the island or out of San Diego, apparently. But the Orioles now are in this really weird spot. They're not any good. I don't think they can win the World Series. Their pitching has been historically horrific. They can't even, run a rundown properly at this point. And And the old man's getting older and slowing down, and Duquette tried to leave 2 years ago. They wouldn't let him leave. I've just released the Peter Principles, as you know, with 25 years of Peter Angelos around here. This is not an Angelosian thing to do, to deal Manny Machado off. It's more for him to sit all the way in and die a slow death next offseason when somebody gives him $350 million. This is where the big boy pants have to get put on as an organization, and you have to make really, really good decisions here over the next 3 weeks, which, quite frankly, this organization's had a hard time doing this time of the year.
Well, I mean, your point about it, the deadline is upon us. I mean, there's no question. I mean, obviously, they're going through something similar as far as the player goes with Bryce Harper over there just down the road, but they're great. I mean, that Nationals team is fantastic, and they do have World Series on their mind, and if they can shore up that bullpen, they got to feel like they have as good a chance as anybody. So, yeah, they're going to cling on to Harper as long as they can, and you can't blame them. Their window is wide open, not in Baltimore. And yeah, there's some major considerations that have to happen there. And, you just wonder about tearing the whole thing down. I mean, it does feel like that's a team that window just kind of closed. They had that real opportunity the year that they lost to the Royals. I mean, that was they were better than the Royals, certainly all year, and that was a real chance. And the Royals just steamrolled them in that playoff series, and you kind of feel like, oh, that was their moment. That was their moment when things could have really come together. And now, yeah, real hard decisions, and there's pain on whatever you do. I mean, you either start breaking it up now and trying to build for the future and then deal with the pain now, or you watch him walk and you deal with a lot of pain later.
All right, look, man, at 14, you wrote the Springsteen song, Hall of Fame. I did not pester you. In 15, you wrote an ode to Born to Run. We have not discussed it at all. I've now chased Springsteen around Australia twice in the last 3 years.
Sure.
I'm already in line to get tickets for this Broadway thing that doesn't even exist yet. But at some point, maybe we can have an adult beverage and get to see Bruce strum the guitar and play Valentine's Day or something, maybe on a keyboard. I don't know. But the Springsteen thing, I'm having a little withdrawal here. I mean, we were at the last show in Auckland. I ran into Nils Lofgren in Denver a couple weeks ago at a Tom Petty show. And, I think we're done with E Street for a while, bro. It might be back to, like, the harmonica and the acoustic, which is a great thing. But, I'm going to miss the river in its entirety and that sort of thing.
Oh, no question. I mean, but your point is right. First of all, I think that this is, we've seen this happen many times before, where Bruce gets into his moments where it's suddenly about me doing, Tom Joad and me and a guitar on a stage. And when I heard the Broadway thing was going to happen, that's what I thought. I thought, okay, he's back in that spot. But I'll say this, and I love Nils and did a big piece on him for Sports Illustrated. Love the guy. It's not the same. I mean, as great as they are, and they're still great, every time I watch them, I can't help but feel about the old E Street, the guys they've lost. I mean, it's tough. It's really tough, and knowing that we'll never see, sort of the complete E Street band together ever again. It's a sad deal, and I think the great thing that Bruce does is Bruce goes on. He goes on and finds the next musical challenge, and I really respect him for that.
Had a momentous moment because, I've spent so many nights with Bruce and all these halls. I've touched his butt 1,000 times and carried him through on Hungry Heart and all that. But I actually got to meet him on the book tour in New Jersey the first day, and I did it straight. I didn't have any inside access. Just hit the lottery, got the little ticket, went up to Freehold, stood in line, and, it's like, what do you say to Bruce when you get up on him, right? I mean, what you have 10 seconds, go. What do you say to Bruce Springsteen? I was, as a guy of many words, Joe, I was lost for those 15. I just told him I loved him and hugged him and said thanks, and that was it. And I think that's all maybe you can do in 10 seconds.
I think that's all you can do. And I've never met Bruce. I mean, I've seen him, 1,000 times, and have come close to connecting with him a bunch of times. And I've thought about that. I thought, well, what do you say to somebody who's meant so much to you in your life? But yet, on the other hand, you don't know him. He doesn't know you. There's no real, I've written thousands of words about Bruce, and I've been told that he's read some of those, and they touched him, which made me feel great. But what am I going to say to him? I mean, that's all you can say. All you can say is, hey, thank you, and that's,
that's a deal. I think I remember seeing this, this really crossed over to sports. I remember following around Mickey Mantle at a baseball card show once when I was writing a story about him, and people were coming up to him and they were in tears. They were just crying, trying to explain to Mickey Mantle what he meant to them, and you realized from the other side of it, Mickey Mantle had heard that 5 million times.
You have to get numb to it, right? I mean, literally.
You get numb to it, and you don't want that. You don't want to say something and feel like it didn't connect, and yet on the other hand, how many times could Bruce Springsteen hear from guys like us about how much he needs us? I mean, it's almost like you want him to know, you want him to you want to be able to give him that full gratitude. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think just listening to the music is what he wants. He just wants to be able to be in that room and feel the energy of the crowd. And you and I have been lucky enough to do that a lot of times.
It's not unrequited love. I felt it every night he sang Drive All Night on the tour, all 16 times on the River Tour last spring. So it was all good. Joe, man, I love having you on. Always appreciate you making time. Hope we get a chance to connect a little bit in Miami as well. And tramps like us, we're born to run, of course.
We are. We are.
Thanks, Joe. I love your work, man. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
You got it. Joe Posnanski. He is Jay Posnanski. Curiously long out on the internet, as it should be with all great writing. He's at MLB.com as their executive columnist and author of an upcoming book on Houdini. And you can check out his podcasts with Ken Tremendous and follow him out at Twitter at Jay Posnanski as well. Always great to visit with him and talk some baseball. You can find me in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you happen to be. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports. Second, I just... in Baltimore, just with his time during the busiest time of the basketball season. He is the longtime voice of all things Maryland Terps on the basketball and the football side. Of course, if you tune into Masson 2 or 1, the opposite of wherever your Oriole programming is, he is, of course, doing all things Natitude as they try to run away and hide the National League East. We welcome the one, the only, the great Johnny Holiday back on. Johnny, happy summer to you. Happy cool-off period here. I'm down in Miami chasing these All-Stars. You're getting a couple of well-deserved days off here in the middle of the week.
Well, Nestor, it's always good to be with you, and I wish I was there with you in Miami because that's my hometown.
You know, I was very, very disappointed to learn that they do not have stone crabs in July. I Googled it, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing going to Miami when there's no stone crabs?
You got to go to Joe Stone Crab. They got them down there.
They said, what they say, October 15th to May 15th is what they tell me is in season.
Is that what they say?
That's what they said. I don't know. You're a Miami guy. I figure you know.
Hey, they got a Joe Stone Crab up in Washington. You stop by there, they got them all the time.
All right, well, anywhere I can get some stone crabs, I'm all about it. I know one thing. You guys are going to be treated to some really good baseball down there in D.C. the last 3 months of the season. Here in Baltimore, man, boy, it's, Machado tradable. Britton, is he back? Are they going to buy? Are they going to sell? It certainly has been a mess here, but the Nationals feel like it's on, autopilot right now till October, right?
Yeah, they got a 9.5 game lead over Atlanta, but I don't think the guys sit back and say, okay, we're pretty comfortable and this baby's all over, because it's not. Especially the bullpen's had some troubles, and they're trying to get that thing squared away, which I think they will in time. And who knows what Mike Rizzo is going to do by the time the deadline comes around. He knows what the problems are. Starting pitchers are dynamite with Max and with Strasburg and the Gio Gonzalez, who unfortunately is not in Miami for the All-Star game, although I think he should be for what he's done. He lost the last couple of games only because of lack of support. And you got 5 guys representing this franchise in the All-Star game. And Ryan Zimmerman and Daniel Murphy and Bryce Harper and Strasburg and Max Scherzer. So I think the table is set for a terrific second half of the year. Patching up a couple of holes here or there. A lot of guys have been hurt, Nestor, on the DL this year. You get one guy off, another guy goes on. You never know who's going to go and how long he's going to be off. And still they manage in not the strongest division, the National League East, to maintain that lead. Only team over 500 is the Nationals. And the only goal is to win the whole thing this year. For Ted Lerner, who's put a lot of money, a lot of sweat and cash behind this whole franchise. and everybody feels they can do it. They've got enough to go in the second half, and maybe add a piece or two here or there, and maybe bring a world championship to Washington. They certainly deserve it.
Well, behind all of this stuff is the dispute at your network at Masson between the Orioles and the Nats. Boy, if the Nats win that dispute, that would be the money for Bryce Harper. I mean, we're talking about almost $400 million now. The Bryce Harper thing is as severe in Washington and re-signing him as the Machado thing is in Baltimore, and it's not going to be cheap for either one of these teams to keep homegrown talent with the Yankees, Philadelphia, these teams loading up, because these are going to be $250, $300, $350 million kind of deals for both of these guys. They both could be gone in 18 months, right?
And they both deserve whatever the going rate is. And I think it's going to work out for Bryce. I'm not so sure about Manny up there in Baltimore. I don't know what his association is, but I know Bryce loves the city. He's got a home here. He always says the right things, which he's going to say anyhow. And I think he's fallen in love with Washington as they have with him. And the great thing about Bryce Harper is how young he is and the incredible numbers he consistently puts up. I say one of the toughest outs in baseball has got to be Bryce Harper. And on this team, outside of Daniel Murphy, who I think is the toughest out in this team, I mean, Harper's just got all-star written over him for who knows how long. And the Yankees are going to come calling, the Dodgers are going to come calling, and both those franchises have a lot of money. But the learners don't operate. They don't operate in the press. Number one, they don't even talk about it. And I think the stock line, which I agree with, we're going to work this thing out between us, and in due time, whatever it's contract time, we will give him what we think is fair, and Bryce will ask for probably the moon, and they'll all work it out. I hope so, because he's been so good for Washington. He's a delightful guy to be around, to work with, and knows his role with the kids and young people and the charities and things like that. Plus, the guy can just play his tail off. So I hope it all works out. I hope it also works out for Machado up there in Baltimore. I mean, just watching him every time the Nationals play him, this guy's unbelievable. So you got two dilemmas there, and I hope for both guys it works out. Hope they get what they deserve.
Well, and in the case of Harper, he really struggled last year. Now we're seeing Machado sort of hit this same thing, where there's been a real struggle. And I know for Harper, there was an injury, at least an alleged injury last year that contributed to that. But, to see guys like that in the early part of their prime sort of get lost for a couple of months, we've witnessed that here for the last 3 months with Machado. I don't think anyone could have predicted him hitting below 230 at the All-Star break.
No. And I think also when you look at how young these guys, at least we do in Washington, we look at Bryce Harper in his early 20s and say, how good can this guy be by the time he gets to be 26, 27, 28, into his 30s and so. I mean, Zimmerman now is 32. He's the grandfather on this team. He's been around. Look what he's doing. Second best average in the National League behind Daniel Murphy, and Bryce Harper's in there third best. So, I mean, the future is so good for so many good young players. I mean, not only here, but I think in other ball clubs too. Look at the guy up in New York and Judge, what he's done, and he's a younger guy than Bryce Harper is. So, we just hope it all works out for Bryce to be here for a long time and continues to lead this ball club to hopefully the promised land and get the World Series.
Always great to hear the pipes of the great Johnny Holiday. He is the Holiday Kid out on Twitter, and of course my Facebook friend as well, and the longtime voice of Maryland basketball and football. Johnny, which one do you want? You want football for 100 or basketball for 200 here? Because certainly we haven't talked since, I guess it was March, right around the time when the Terps went into the tournament, and the disappointment of Melo Trimble not getting drafted, and, some kids coming back and not coming back, and where the Terps are going to be. But, I think the one thing for Maryland everybody talks about in the summertime now is the old Cole Fieldhouse and the transformation going on campus there. Boy, that's something that's going to help every program. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, and they had to do something because so many good teams in the Big Ten have got these magnificent facilities for athletics other than basketball and football, these all-encompassing things. And if you've seen it, I went by there a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it is incredible. You would never know there was a Cole Fieldhouse inside that arena, what they've done and what they will finish. and they're supposed to have it done. I think they're unscheduled. It's not that far away from, opening up things and getting things rolling. But you got to do that to be able to compete in the Big Ten, because there are so many other good venues for these other schools. But basketball is going to be fine, Nestor. They've got a terrific coach in Mark Turgeon. Even though you lose Melo Trimble, he's gone. I still have so much confidence in these young guys. And with the young guys coming in, Kevin Herter, led the USA under-19 team. I think they got the bronze medal in Egypt. And another one of the freshman kids was playing for Spain. And you got Cowan coming back, and you got Kevin Herter coming back, and you got Jackson. I mean, it's going to be a very, very good team. And I think for Durkin in football, it's going to take a little time, but boy, is he getting there, and can this guy recruit? I mean, he's got a better recruiting class coming in next year than he has this year, and it's getting better all the time. Kids want to come. They want to play for him. They know that his focus is on winning. His focus right now is in getting better defensively. And the guy's he's going to be 40 years old coming up. He's only 39 years old as a head coach, and for 2 years, this will be his second year at Maryland. I think he's going to do a fabulous job. And given time, it's not going to happen overnight, but he has the time, and he and Kevin Anderson are on the same page. They got some improvements to do with the defense, and get yourself a good quarterback, and the running game is fine. Wide receivers are fine. Offensive line could probably use a guy here or there, but I think football's got a bright future, too, and that'll be good. Good to see. I'd love to see that football stadium in Maryland filled every day like it was when Bobby Ross was coaching back in the 80s.
Not going to be easy for you guys Labor Day weekend. You're going deep into the heart of Texas. I mean, Maryland playing down in Austin against the Burnt Orange. Who knew, right?
Yeah, first time. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to miss that game, which I hate to. I got a grandson getting married, our first grandchild, and so I'm going to have somebody else filling in for me in that game. But that's one I would really like to do, to see that game in Texas. I've never been down there, never seen a Texas game in person. We played them in basketball before, but not in football, and it'll be a heck of a test for this team. And after that, I think the rest of the non-conference schedule, they should be able to win all those games before the Big Ten starts.
Well, I tell you what, Ohio State, Michigan still there, Penn State. No one knows what to make of these teams. I mean, the ups and the downs. Last year we thought Michigan State was going to be something special, and they kind of fell off the cliff. And look, here comes Penn State again. But, beware Penn State, right? I mean, you spent a long, long period of time back in the 70s and 80s calling a lot of lopsided football games.
Yeah, the tough thing about last year, Nestor, was when we went up there at Penn State, we had that game won. And I think if you hadn't lost Perry Hills, the quarterback, if he hadn't gone out in that first half with the injury, didn't come back, it might have been a different story. And that kind of changed the entire complexion of the Maryland season. When they lost that game, it kind of spiraled downhill from that point on. And that was a big, big turning point of last year's season. They are so good and so tough to win up there, but the Terps have done it before. But James Franklin's done a great job as the head coach up there. And as you said, you got Ohio State, you got Michigan, Michigan State. It seems like every week you get past one of the big boys, and you may play them tough for a half or three quarters, and then because of the strength they've got and the deep depth they have in their teams, they pull away and they win. And you say, okay, we got rid of Ohio State. Wow, I'm glad that's over. Yeah, but you got Michigan next week. You got to go to Ann Arbor. You got to have 105,000 people against you. It's a tough conference, but I think they're going to hold their own as you move along and get into a couple of more years and better recruiting. And I've got all the confidence in DJ Durkin. I think he's going to be a magnificent coach, and I hope Maryland keeps him for a long, long time.
Johnny Holiday joining us here, of course, voice of the Nats on Masson, pre and post, and as well as the Maryland Terps. Basketball, last thing for you, Johnny. I mean, you've seen all these great players come through all these years. You even call some games with the great Walt Williams there. And we had Chris Nocky on last week as well, talking some Terps here. But the Melo Trimble thing, I've never seen a guy come in and transform the program sort of the way he did, and certainly Turgeon was very reverential, and yet not get drafted. Boy, the NBA is just punishing these kids that don't come out after 1 year, aren't they?
Well, I think the problem with Melo, at least from my own perspective, Nestor, is he had such a good freshman year. I mean, everybody was talking about him, And, the future was so bright. And then the next 2 years, if you look at his numbers weren't as good as they were his freshman season. And I think that's what cost him. That had he continued to go up the scale, up the mountain a little bit, and get better with a three-point shooting, get better with his ball handling, get better with his defense, and cutting down on turnovers, I think he might have been drafted. But as Mark Turgeon told him, hey, Melo, I coached in the NBA. He coached with the Sixers up there as an assistant. I know what it takes, what they're looking for. And I think right now you've got to work on this and this and this and this, and you might have a shot at getting drafted. Otherwise, they're probably not going to pick you. And if you came back to Maryland for one more year, you could work on those things, improve your game, and then have a good shot at the NBA. If not, you'll be playing overseas, which is okay. You'll be making a pretty good living playing over there. I mean, Derek Lewis did it for a lot of years. Mosley did it. There's a lot of guys who've gone over there and made a very, very good living. But you want to play in the NBA. And I think maybe Melo's going to find that in retrospect, when he goes through this year, even though he's up there at a Sixers summer camp, that he will wish, at least I think he's going to wish he'd have come back for one more year. I think if that would have been the case, then he might have a shot at the NBA.
Johnny, Nats going to win the World Series this year. Are you feeling some attitude here? Certainly, next couple weeks, the Orioles may be one of the suitors trying to trade relief pitching their way, because certainly the Nationals are going to be the ones in the market trying to set the market, and maybe not just one relief pitcher, maybe a couple, huh?
I think the problem now with Washington, though, Nestor, is you got to figure out who you're going to give up. You're going to have to give up somebody halfway decent and a pretty good prospect to get somebody good, and the asking price is going to be, I think it's going to be extremely high. And if they don't, I think they're going to make a move somehow, some way. I mean, Mike Rizzo's he hadn't been in that position because of his personality. He knows baseball. He knows what's out there. He knows how to negotiate. You got Scott Boras, who's on his side as a great agent. He got a lot of these guys in the ball club under Boras's, contracts and so forth. So I think we're all kind of sitting back saying we know that Mike's going to do something. It's just where is he going to go to get somebody, and when's he going to do it?
Johnny, always love having you on. Always love the visits. I know you're busy, and getting younger every day. I wish we could all keep up with you, my friend. But
thank you.
We'll continue to check in.
Never too busy with you, though. Keep that in mind.
Hey, when's your golf tournament?
It was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I thought I know it's like June-ish, and I was like, so what do we do this year? I mean, just
this year we honored Ryan Zimmerman.
Nice.
And Ryan was there from 11:30 in the morning until 8:45 at night. He played with a foursome, and we had 33 celebrities, 33 guys, friends of mine in the media from down here, newspapers, radio, television, whatever. Walt Williams plays, Chris Nockey plays, Mark Turgeon plays, DJ Durkin, Bob Malloy, the head coach at Good Counsel, former head coach at Good Counsel, Sam Hollenbach, the Maryland quarterback, Brooks Bernard, the punter, Brent Harris from television, and Rick Barley even came in. The Hall of Fame basketball player came in to be one of our celebrities. And we made the most we've ever made for this Youth Leadership Foundation. We made $250,000.
$250,000 large. Yeah. It is helpingkids.org is the way to find out.
That's exactly right.
I'm on the page here right now. I want to let you talk a little bit about it, but I want to make sure everybody knows what you guys do for the Youth Leadership Foundation out there. 20 years now, Johnny Holliday's golf tournament, helpingkids.org, and you can always follow him at Holiday Kid. Get a little bit of rest here, Holiday Kid, this week, and slow down. You're going to have a long summer and maybe even a long fall into October with those Nats.
Yeah, you kind of love it, though. Beats working, Nestor.
You know what? This sports thing, I think it's going to catch on.
I think so, too. I think if you and I keep trying, we may be able to turn the corner someday.
One day I'm going to call you and put you on and pretend that we're going to talk Terps and we're going to talk Nats, but we're just going to talk about old rock and roll. That's the next time I have you on now.
Anytime. I'd love that. I would love that.
Johnny, love you, man. Appreciate you. Be well.
Okay, Nestor. And my best to the missus, too.
Of course. I appreciate that. Holiday Kid out on Twitter, and the great Johnny Holiday, the longtime voice of all things Turtles. You can find him on the other Masson channel when you're not watching the Orioles and watching the Nats, which maybe by September we'll all be watching. watching the Nats, for crying out loud. You can find me on the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. That's all powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it is still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life, guaranteed. I am a very available individual. You can find me out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.